Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast, Let's Go Threat Hunting, Gain Visibility and Insight into Potential Threats and Risks. Before I hand this over to John to get started, I want to run through a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please enter them in the questions box in the toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. We will be sending out a recording of this webcast to everyone who attended and registered within the next couple of days, so please be on the lookout for that. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand it over to John Ayers, the VP of Product Management for Neturion. John?
Hey, thank you, David. Really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for taking the time today. As David said, it's all about threat hunting and where we go from here. So let's go ahead and get started on our threat hunting service. Event Tracker and Neturion. We've been in the Magic Quadrant, list today for over the past 10 years. Very comprehensive. One of the things that we are very excited about is our SIM. For those of you probably heard, Event Tracker is our SIM. And then on top of that, we've really created some innovative type solutions called Symphonic, which is really our product with a service element or what we call our co-managed SOC. And one of the things that we feel very happy about is that we do provide these practical, flexible, type solutions for, the one-man security team or the person who's wearing both hats of not only security but also networking and or there is none, right? It's someone else that's been brought in and said, look, I want you to take care of it. So we really tailored our solution a little bit around helping this SMB to mid-market type customer. But with all that said, let's kind of talk about our agenda, and what we want to focus on is what is threat hunting, right? There's been a lot of discussion out there. Everyone's really talking about it. It really became a mainstream conversation at RSA a couple years back. But I think what we're going to help you with is, threat hunting, but really what is a threat and why me? Why should I care? And what is what we call the threat life cycle? Because it's very important when you think about the threat is finding what we call patient zero. So we'll dive into that a little bit. But the really big thing is why hunt, right? Why hunt for these threats? What makes it important? I have a friend that basically says, look, it's time to take it to the bad guys. So this is a way to dive in. What is the bad person who's trying to, potentially cause harm or upset your environment? And then we'll dive in a little deeper on when should you go hunt. I mean, really, we don't have all the manpower nor the resources these days to really spend a lot of time, unless you're a large organization that has a dedicated team to hunt for these threats, and which is, if that's great if you do, and if not, we have tools that we can help you, you mimic that type of behavior inside your environment. And then the hunting maturity aspect of this. How do you get mature as you go? And, oh, by the way, what happens if you find something? What do I do? What happens now if I find patient zero as part of this hunt? Or if I find, not only patient zero, but find this suspicious malware, this APT, what do I do? And we'll discuss in there. And then what's the role of threat intelligence that helps me through this hunting and things of that nature? So we got some good stuff here. And then how Symphonic. We'll wrap this up on Symphonic and how it will help you hunt. And then, what did we catch? What's our catch of the day, and how you guys can actually take a look at that. So let's dive into, what is threat hunting, right? I just recently did a talk about this at an event a couple months ago, and the first thing I asked my audience was, how many people here go hunting? And when I mean go hunting, they've done some type of, waterfowl hunting, they've done some deer hunting, squirrel hunting, whatever the case may be. They've gone out hunting, and then, what kind of challenges did they run into as they were, say, before we consider to be cybersecurity threat hunting. And the biggest thing is they're very common to what we did back in the days of hunting itself was lack of visibility. And this seems to be a big, same old security challenge that every customer has today and every MSP has today. And look, even the big SPs are struggling with is lack of visibility. And the other is lack of qualified analysts. These do not grow on trees. Some of our best talented analysts obviously come from the federal government, out of our military, who we've been doing this for a long time. But how do you transition those guys and gals from the military into the enterprise world? And really the big thing is nobody's hunting for the adversary. We're always very reactionary, which then goes in too long to detect and investigate, which we call 0 day, right? The average 0 day has actually gone down, quite a bit from the 6 months that it was last year to, almost, less than, 200 days now. But think about that for a minute. It's very long to detect and investigate these total services. But let's talk a little bit about what is threat hunting. Why, what is it and what constitutes, threat hunting? And really, it's very short. It says, hey, human-led process, right, that enriches the security measures. And that's really what it comes down to. We've been operating in this role of what we call defense in depth, and really trying to gain insights into our data sources, right, using this defense in depth. It goes back to even the days of the Romans, right, where they built these moats and they built these nice castles and things, and they had a physical type of things, but they never really, if someone was to breach, they would stumble, right, on someone who got inside those environments. And much like our everyday world, we always are stumbling on the adversary. So in short, one of the things we have is you have some good stuff, right? And everybody's got some good stuff. That good stuff can be PHI, it can be PII. It could even be classified as some type of data, but it's still good stuff that bad guys are looking for. One of the things that's very prominent with bad guys today, the good stuff, is that they can actually turn that into cash. And so is your stuff that quick and easy ability to turn into cash? Now, everyone has defenses. Everyone's got the firewall. Everyone feels they've got the right things. And so what's that compelling event? And a lot of people are just, ignorance is bliss. What I don't know is what I don't know, and I'm okay with that until it happens, and I'll deal with it. And look, that's okay. And there's where we have this no silver bullet that solves for this, because everybody's got some a little to so much, right? An example of that is we have certain customers right now that could have 40-point solutions trying to do some type of defense for the security. But if you ask someone what number 1 does versus number 40, in most cases, they would not have an idea. So what now? What do we do, right? How do we go look for these guys? And then, how do we hunt? And in essence, this case, if you're not threat hunting, you're waiting for someone else to tell you you've been hacked. And that is a showstopper, right? That really gets us all in trouble when someone else is telling you that, hey, you've been breached, and not really. So what is a threat? So in simplest term, it's a threat that occurs because someone found you good stuff. It means they've had an intent, the goals the adversary is wanted to achieve. It's no different than the old days of someone robbing a bank or things of that nature. They have intent, capacity, and opportunity. This is no different than an actual even crime that takes today. So a lot of people need to put that in their mind, that threat, what is a threat is no different than what a crime is. Because capability, the ability of your adversary to successfully breach your organization. So this is simply, a great example of someone who is going out doing recon on a 7-Eleven and saying, look, I'm going to find out how to breach it. It's a low level at night, no one's around, it's one person, and this is how I can achieve my intended goal, which is, doing what I need to do. No different in our cyber world today, because there's an opportunity, right? Timing, the knowledge, the environment. Same goes with our virtual environment. So we have to start thinking of this way, that a threat is still a crime, and how you weight it, how you define it, is no different than what happens today in a typical crime but this is to your organization. This is a bad guy that you're not seeing up in front and personal. It's the bad guy who's sitting thousands and thousands of miles away on a laptop and trying to figure out what type of, what is their goal, what kind of capabilities do they have, and what's the opportunity that they can get, which is the good stuff that you may have. So let's keep going here and talk a little bit about time. Time is critical. I touched on that earlier in the agenda around 0 day and how it has improved, but it's still still long, right? I mean, let's think about it. That's 170 days. I mean, the average time to detection, is 191. Time to resolution is 66. That's 66 days, right? So that means that 68% of your compromises go unscovered for months. I mean, that's a long time. In itself, that should justify what? Some kind of, attack vector, right? How do I go after this? How do I go find this? And versus stumbling on. So take your home for a moment. And would you want to know if someone was shaking your doorknob and out, waking up the next morning and finding your doorknob's been broken and that somebody actually got in. That's what we're trying to solve for when it comes to why hunt for threats, because you want to be on the other side of the percentage when it says, when someone hits my doorknob, I want to do it. So, but yes, it's expensive, and we know that. So this is where we can do that. So let's kind of talk about the threat life cycle before we dive into how we solve for it. Look, in simple, the target's been defined. We recently saw the biggest issues around Equifax. They were a big target. Why was they a target? They did their recon. They did a lot of development. They weaponized their environments, and in some cases, they delivered. Other cases, they didn't need to do anything, right? They just installed it in command and control. So here's a great example of the Target stores a few years back was breached, right? The bad guys reconned that, but not in the fashion that you would think, right? They doubled into that one where they were able to deliver it through an HVAC laptop because they took an exploitation opportunity, network access control, didn't alert anybody, they installed it, and then now they managed to command and control that, and boom, objective met. They've made destruction. But think about that for a minute. If someone was able to hunt that or had the necessary tools to alert you on that and notify you from a preactive or a proactive aspect, how would that change the threat life cycle? So before we do that, let's kind of really quickly kind of go through a kill chain of what I like to call advanced threats, which is mostly what some of the threats that we as people on a daily basis actually deal with. So let's talk about you at your customer's office and you get this malicious email, all right, and you think it's spam and you don't know what it is. You've clicked on it, web filtering, the malicious link has been green, let's go. It's actually sent you to this malicious site because, it looks like, hey, well, I get, for every $100 I get $50 off at some store. And it's right now it's the kids' time, right? I'm buying kids back to school. Wow, $50. If I spend 100, I save 50. That's a lot. I can buy a whole bunch more clothes. So it's an intensing malicious email that allows us to do that. But once it goes to that site and you start to click on it, now they've actually said, look, I've exploited you. The intrusion prevention should have kicked in, and now it doesn't do that. And now they said, look, I want to take this another step, and I want to now deploy some malware into your environment. And that malware can be various different types of what we call botnet. And now your device has actually now become a botnet. And a botnet, is simply put, is your computer has basically become a computer for a command and control server. So if your computer all of a sudden wakes up in the middle of the night and starts sending data, it's because the command and control server has sent a script to your device that's sitting on the internet because you've got a malicious email that you went to a malicious site, you actually clicked on it, you've been exploited. Now the malware was installed, you didn't even know it. It's called fireless malware or malware in itself. And guess what? Now your data is being stolen, or your company's data is being stolen. And how would I find that out? And that's where the and comes in, and then it keeps an and. So let's start with, where do we kill the chain to catch them, right? Let's face it, a win is a win. When you catch them anywhere in this cycle and you win, they lose. And why is that? The hardest part for any type of bad guy is, look, if you make it hard for them, they lose interest. The harder it is, the more costly it is for them. They would rather go after targets that are a lot easier. So a win is a win. So catch that win. The other piece is, don't buy the bogus argument defenders have to win every time. There is this argument out there that bad guys says, look, I only have to be right once. You have to be right all the time. And there is some pieces to that in there, but look, a win is a win. Take your wins and get it. One win versus no wins, you win, right? It's a 1 + 1 story, and that's the key. So assume you've caught something, right? You caught it. Now I got it. Now what do I do with it? And that's really work out this incident response plan. So one of the things that we've asked a lot of our customers, and we're going to coach you as well as part of this environment, do you have a plan? Do you have an incident response plan? So what happens today if you were breached, or if you were as part of this environment? Do you have a plan? Do you have a legal team? Do you have forensics? Do you have an analyst? What is your short-term containment? Do you just unplug it? Is it I respond to the bad guy's email? Those are things. What does it and when does an incident found? So we have to determine that. And there is stages, right? There is stages of this incident response, and they should be practiced all the time. Look, Today, if in the environment of Department of Homeland Security, every time there's a problem, they practice. So we call this red and blue team tabletop exercises. I would encourage everybody to practice. It's not if, but when you will be breached. And prepare for this. Prepare for the ability to detect, to prepare for the ability to analyze, but also prepare for how do I contain. The biggest problem we run into and seen with a lot of customers is the lack of containment. That in itself can be a big problem, right? Because if you can't contain, that's basically becomes a problem, right? And the containment is the issue that we see a lot today. So let's go back to, let's keep moving forward on now what you need to start hunting, right? It's not going out and buying, camouflage clothes and things of that nature that I want to camouflage, but there's things I need to go do to start hunting. Look, first of all, you need to get data from your assets. So one of the things that someone asked me is what I would do, number one, before I start hunting is I would get a complete assessment of my network. What is on my network? What type of devices do I have on network? What devices are talking? What devices have access to what? Get an inventory. First is a passive defense. First is important, right? Passively continue to watch. Don't do things that would upset your network. And then active defense. What things I need to do, but you have to understand your environment before you put that active defense in. And active defense could be, look, I need to harden my firewall. I have open ports. I've done a threat assessment, and I've determined that I've got this port and it's talking at this time. A great example, a lot of people don't realize, is RDP. RDP is basically the doorway for most of these breaches here lately, because people feel that, look, I need to have that in order to manage my network. And there's other ways to do that. MELD TI, and TI stands for threat intelligence. Understand your intel. Look, we as people in our families, what do we do on a daily basis? We read the paper, right? We go out to the internet, we look at things. That's intelligence, right? We're getting intelligence. We're finding out, hey, down the road, my neighbors had 4 houses that were broken into. That is actionable intelligence for you as a homeowner to say, look, I need to go do something. Do I go buy a big dog? Do I need to, put some security lights out? But one of the things that you need to do is that, look, it's not cry wolf. Is there a common repeatable issue here? And threat intelligence can help with that. And then this hypothetical, offense, right? It's better to have offense, but defenses win, right? Look, we all know about football and Super Bowls, but defense wins Super Bowls. And here, defense is the same thing, right? You want to be able to win. Put on your best defense, and you'll be able to do well. If you have a nation state, capabilities hint, you don't. These guys will keep coming after you. So how do I hunt? First of all and foremost, it's a hypothesis, right? There is this old saying that I need to have all these types of things, or these VPN connections from outside your home to a country that needs this investigation. I've seen something first time, seen process on a critical machine. But look, let's get the data, right? Let's get the data, link the data, make an analysis of that, and around pivoting to the source. The issue here is trying to get enough information, what I like to call intelligence. Before you can hunt, you have to know what you're hunting for. Know your target. Just as a bad guy, reverse your environments. The bad guy has opportunity. They recon. They know the capabilities that they have. Same goes with you. Recon your environment. Understand your environment. What capabilities do you have? Practice hunting in your own environment. Look for things that are out there. Look for the unknowns. Analyze that information. Score. Wait, possible. Is it bad? What do I do with that? And then visualize the anomaly itself. Well, if this anomaly should have taken place, what happens? So these are all ways of how to hunt and enrich your information. One of the things that we fail to do sometimes is we don't enrich the information. There's where threat intelligence is an enrichment type tool to help with hunting, because without the right actionable intelligence, how are you going to hunt? So let's take an example. Our pilgrims back in the day. Thanksgiving's coming up today. They wanted to go hunting. They need to go get that turkey. Do you think they just got up one day and took off and ran? No, they went to they got together, got up at a specific time, got all the things they needed to go hunting. They knew an area where they were going to go hunting. Why? Because they had intelligence and knew that the turkeys were in that area. They had actionable intelligence. They reacted to that intelligence. So that's how you hunt. You got all these necessary things that require you to go hunt. Look, hunting is not rocket science. It's common sense. So who should hunt? So this is a full-time job. If you don't put your mind to it, do it part-time, it's not going to work, right? You got to do it. And there's a lot of large corporations who do have dedicated staff, probably 2 or 3 people, and they have those tools to actually do that, and it's very preferred. But yet we do understand it is costly, and really they're actually focused on true threats, not sidelined by a bunch of alert fatigue and things of that nature from your network, or vulnerability patching and CV files, things of that nature. But curious people with exposure to security technologies. But look, the idea here is that we give you 4 bubbles here. A log analysis is a great tool to understand, score and weight that. Put the right tool, event management tool in place, and this is where we're setting you up here for what we can do. Knowledge of your baseline network activity. What is considered norm and what is unnormal? How many devices do I have on my network at any given time, right? Also now threat analysis. Look at the analysis. Look what's going on, because different times of the year, your threat information may be different. Threats are just like seasons, right? They do change. Some are higher at some points in time, and some are others at other points in time. Understanding your endpoint, your apps, your users, when are they in? This is where AI eventually down the road may become a very big tool to help with hunting, because it can take all that baseline information from endpoints to apps to users and their access and formulate the ability of when peak and low peak and what we call mid-max efforts and what we should hunt and when we shouldn't. Much like going out and hunting for a turkey. We're not going to go hunt for a turkey on Thanksgiving at 12 o'clock during the day, right? Or we're not going to go hunt a turkey at night because we can't see it. We know we're going to go in the morning because they're going to feed, and we're going to go in the evening because they're going to feed, and then after the evening you're going to go sleep. So use common sense when you're thinking about who should hunt, how you should hunt, and where I should hunt, because that at the end of the day is what it is. So I'm going to wrap this up and continue to move forward on the maturity model. Level 0 is an initial hunt, minimal, procedural, innovative, and leading. So this is really designed to help you understand where am I at in the overall maturity model of hunting. If I'm really just started at level 0, I have preliminary automated learning, little or no routine data collection, meaning, hey, I have no way of getting this information. Because one of the great things that goes back to the incident response, and I guarantee you if you had someone parachute in, I've been breached, I think the first thing they're going to ask you for is your data. Give me your logs, give me your syslogs, what have you done? And most companies, to be honest with you, basically say, you know what, I don't have any of that. And that's where finding the mountain in the molehill or the needle in the haystack really isn't going to help, because why? I can't see it. I can't find it. I can't zero in on it because I don't have the data. So now I got to go find the data. So how does Symphonic help with this, right? We talked a lot about the incident response. So here's where we start with the end mining game. This is where we do. We provide a very much this service with a product element to help with that incident response plan. We identify the data sources and we integrate. So what it means is we've gone out there and we've done an asset discovery. We look at all your assets on your network, we've integrated them, and we've been able to tell you what they are. Now the second thing is that, hey, you know what? Now let's take all that data source and now let's integrate the threat intelligence. Here's all the intelligence I've got. I've even got intelligence about my neighborhood watch, which means about my neighbors who are in the same type of vertical that I am. If I'm a bank, I want to know about the other bank. I want to know about credit unions. I want to know about other things. So how do I integrate that threat intelligence? And now how do I trigger based on various sources of information associated to that? Anomaly detection in the network. Look, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because one of the things that we do extremely well is tuning and pruning the noise out. It goes back to the earlier, it's called alert fatigue. A lot of our competition today will send you a lot of emails, but nothing actionable. This is what we get to do, is come in there and tune out that noise and then notify you of the threat, right? Because we've taken into an account the threat intelligence, global or community, and built into that. And we can review these. And then, the idea now is, how do I protect my crown jewels, which is my data? At the end of the day, it's about my data. Now, you have to ask yourself, look yourself in the mirror when you think about how to hunt or how a Symphonic solution can come in and help reduce your cost around that hunting is, if I was breached tomorrow, could I survive that breach? Could me as a company survive? And that's the important piece that everyone needs to ask themselves as they go into understanding, how to hunt and what to hunt for. as it relates to it. So look, let's go ahead and wrap this up and really focus in on the threat landscape. Look, the summary here is that, look, it's evolving. The world is evolving. You know, these nation-state attackers out there, they're organized, they're focused. Look, believe it or not, this is a business to them. You are a target of opportunity, and they're looking for that. You have to assume this new norm. If you don't, ignorance is bliss. You will be breached, and at some point, parts of your network have been compromised already, and you just are ignoring it, which is basically doing a disservice to your customers. Understand your assets. Understand your data. What's the most valuable information do I have? Can I afford for that data to be breached? The example is Equifax. You know, that data was about personal identities. People can open up credit. They can get funds from that. They did not appreciate their data. They did not understand the value of that data. Look, a credit card today in the dark web costs you $1. Your identity is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because why? That's profits, right? They can make a lot of money off it. They can sell it off to as many people because it's your identity. They can assume your identity. You know, establish and adhering to the framework. What is that framework? And when we think about framework, we think about compliance. We think about NIST. We think about SANS. You know, we think about PCI. These are things that are put in place to help you. So don't fear the auditor. Fear the bad guy. That's an important piece here. Perform regular security evaluations. Do an assessment on your network. Look, a lot of these companies today, including ourselves, would love to come in and tell you what's on your wire. Let's assess your environment. Let's understand. And then ultimately, you know, once we evaluate that, let's help you establish the right risk assessments. Let's train. Look, the number one thing, and this is Cybersecurity Month right now, and this is a great opportunity to do a lot of training for your customers and or your employees, which is help them. You are the human. We will make mistakes. The better is training them and making it more affordable for them to understand the situations, and also help them understand what is happening in their day-to-day lives. I mean, we are such a moving entity today that we're constantly on the move. We're constantly, the last thing we're thinking about is someone breaking into our cell phones, or someone trying to steal my credit card, or someone stealing my identity, or thinking about. So the thing about here is determine your core. What do you do well? Perform those functions well, and you know what? This is where we come in. Some of those functions have to be done in partnership. And that's us, right? That's a service provider that's here to help you. We want to be your trusted provider. We want to help you through this threat hunting. There's no need to go out and buy a whole bunch of tools to do something that we can do within one of our solution sets, which is called our Symphonic Essentials or Symphonic Enterprise. So a lot of security functions today almost have to be done in partnership. Why? A couple things. Visibility. I can't get enough visibility. 2, there's not enough qualified people out there. 3, threat intelligence. I don't have the actionable intelligence. I don't know where it's at. So work with those partners to get that information and make sure your lives a lot easier. So let's kind of wrap up and talk about what's the catch. One of the things I would actually like to challenge all of you is to go out to our website. One of the things we do is we review lots and lots of log data every day. We are out there to protect our customers, and so go out and check us out. Check us out what we caught today. This is for everyone, and it's actually quite exciting when you see and you're actually caught something for someone, and tell them, hey, look what we've just now stopped. It's very reassuring, and the nice part about it is you can go back to your executive team and say, look, hey, we stopped this. And believe it or not, that's important. It's your data. It's stopping someone breaking into your house and stealing food out of your refrigerator. In this case, you're stopping someone steal something which is could be your employees' information, could be your customers' information, and then you have to sit and tell that customer or your employees, yeah, I could have stopped this if I did this. Let us be that person you don't have to have that conversation about. Let us help you with that and really zero in. So go check us out, see what we caught, and have fun with that. So I'm going to wrap this up and turn it back over to David. And David, it's all yours.
Thanks a lot, John. Really appreciate all the insights. Let me get to the questions and see what we have. Here we go. So I'm trying to open this box so I can actually read it. Yeah. Okay. You had talked about threat hunting and the catches. What is there a number that we could tell our people that we're trying to sell this to that if a breach does not get caught, how much damage can that inflict on our business?
I don't think there's a number. That's a great question, actually. I don't think there is a number. I think what you have to do is take a look at those breaches that have occurred today that caught people off guard, like the recent breach that just happened on a spam net, right? The spam network. That's a tough one. What you don't want to be is that person that's or your company imposed. You want to try to avoid that. But I will tell you that most breaches are happening now due to the lack of what? Being the defense. We seem to be better served going on the offense and reactive based on the compelling event versus being proactive, which is how do I defend, right? And I hate to say this, but I'll put my history hat on. Most of your most successful countries back in the old days, way back in the days with, kings and queens of London and England and all them, they had the biggest fort, right? They had the biggest castle. Why? Because they could defend the bad guys. You as a person can defend, because you not only do you have the biggest, baddest solution like Event Tracker with Symphonic, but you have a team behind that that can help prevent that so that you can defend that. And I think that's the most powerful statement you want to do, and that's the partnership aspect.
Okay. I have another question here. Does the anti-ransomware shut down the encryption automatically once the canary file is encrypted?
So obviously somebody wants me to jump into an actual incident. So we can get with one of our analysts and dive into that if that's something they want to do. So I'm not familiar with that one personally myself on what the executable is. So we can get with one of our analysts. So
everybody wants a good look into an actual incident, and you can definitely see a lot of those incidents on our on that site.
Yeah, the catch of the day. The catch of the day.
The catch of the day. Yeah.
If it's and it's definitely on how we resolved it and what did we do, how did we find it. A lot of the information's out there, very visible. So that is a very good point, David. So
excellent. No further questions at this time. So
all right.
I will let you go. Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us. We'll be sending out a recording of this to everybody who joined us and everybody who registered. So thank you, John, for all the information, and thank you to everybody for attending today. Have a great one.